You'll see it light up green. You'll see it light up green. 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 See it light up.
Yes, I mean, can you? Yes, I mean, can you?
Okay. I would like to call the April 1st, 2026 Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting to order.
Yeah.
Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I would like to call the April 1st, 2026 Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting to order.
Yeah.
Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I would like to call the April 1st, 2026 Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting to order.
Yeah.
Would staff please call the roll?
Commissioner Burton,
Here.
Commissioner Spindler,
Here.
Commissioner Wadla, Commissioner Strasbaugh,
Here.
Commissioner Ruffridge,
Here.
and Commissioner Murray. You have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Before we begin with our scheduled items, I have a brief announcement on tonight's agenda. This is the public hearing for Resolution PZ 2026-006 for the Soldotna Junction Subdivision Edition number 24. The applicant has withdrawn the request, so we will not be proceeding with that hearing tonight. Okay, so the first item, approval of the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second. Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda? Are there any objectives to approving the agenda? All right, well, hearing none, the agenda is approved. All right, we'll move on to the next item, approval of the minutes. Okay, this is for March 4th, 2026 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the minutes? All right. Are there any objections to approving the minutes? All right. Hearing none, the minutes for the March 4th, 2026 Planning and Zoning regular meeting are approved. All right. The next item is presentation with prior notice, and there are no presentations. So we will move on to the next agenda item. The next agenda item is public hearings. Excuse me. Resolution PZ 2026-005, recommending approval to rezone Tract 2 of the Mooring Estate Subdivision Part 19 from single-family to family residential to multi-family residential. May I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve PZ 2026-005.
Thank you. May I have a second? Thank you. May we have the staff report?
Thank you, Vice Chair Burton. I'm gonna have Beth here pull up the very short presentation. So as noted, this is a rezone request for one parcel to rezone what's currently single-family, two-family residential to multifamily. Go ahead and just skip to the next slide. So this is the only slide I'll have. It's just what's the existing versus the proposed zoning, and I'll talk about the overall site. So as you can see to the left, there is the existing zoning, single-family, two families in purple, and the multifamilies in blue, and then you have institutional in the lighter yellow. So this lot is approximately 5.13 acres with the single family, two family zones. There is a code provision that limits single family, two family zones to one principal building. Therefore, even though this lot itself is 5.13 acres, at most, it can have a single family home or a duplex, one building, and of course, an ADU if they pursue that. So the potential here is either they subdivide it into single family, two family lots, or they rezone it to multifamily. And as noted in the staff report, the applicant came to staff with a desire to really keep this within the family and build additional homes for family that would want to come back and live in Alaska. So staff reviewed it as well with the rezone of a multifamily. How does that fit within the area? And as you can see, the surrounding uses and the zoning as well, multifamily is surrounded quite substantially to the west or to the east and to the south. And these are actually developed multifamily development. And even though there's a vacant multifamily you see there in the southwest corner, staff has been working with the future developer of that lot, and currently what staff is aware of is it would become a 25-unit apartment complex. So now we're seeing additional multifamily development surrounding this subject property. And then to the west, you have that single family, two family zone. Currently it's vacant. It was probably subdivided a couple years ago. So that would be probably the largest impact that you see when it comes to adjacent uses is the single family, two family that would abut to the west here. However, when you have multifamily abutting a single family, two family, there are landscaping buffers, in which case, if this rezone moves forward and the subject parcel develops anything 3 or more, they would have to provide landscaping along the street frontage, which in this case is Knight Drive, as well as Starlight Lane, and buffering landscaping between the lot itself abutting the single family, two families, so that property line to the west. And then in terms of infrastructure, we have infrastructure of water and sewer connection off of Starlight Lane. And so there are already existing infrastructure that they would have to connect to, because any parcel within 300 feet of existing utility or sewer and water infrastructure, they'll have to connect and develop right-of-ways. Starlight Lane is currently developed as an enclosed cul-de-sac right now, but should they have access off of there, they would have to get a driveway permit to connect to that cul-de-sac, as well as off Knight Drive if they are going to get access off of Knight Drive. And Knight Drive is a collector street, so they have two access for this potentially multifamily zone. A few more things that I wanted to talk about. I want to make sure. So in regards to the needs and like aligning with the comp plan as noted in the staff report. With the recent release of the 2026 KPED housing assessment, there's research and data supporting that there's a missing middle, really, multifamily residential uses. And so with rezoning this and knowing to multifamily aligns with that need assessment, as well as, you know, in past conversation with your commission, we've recognized that there are fewer lots available for multifamily development. And so this is a great opportunity to see this rezone from a single family, two family to a multifamily to allow additional housing. Furthermore, all these other potential adverse impacts that I noted, traffic, of course, with any rezone to higher density, you'll see more traffic volume depending on how many units are on site. Again, it does have two access and of course off a collector of Night Drive. It can, higher volume is intended for that collector street. And then privacy and scale is mitigated through our landscaping requirements. And then again, utility and sewer infrastructure, it's already within reason. So we don't see, and this is a perfect example of infill development, is when you have these connections within proximity, it can support this higher density. Other than that, that's really, staff has not received any public input, even though we send out notices. So nothing to report there. And I didn't route it to other departments as noted because really there's not much. Usually I route to other departments if I need comments to it. This is a more of a planning and zoning focus and topic since infrastructure is already there and traffic, you know, the streets are already developed. So other than that, staff is recommending your commission to recommend council to enact or rezone this parcel from single family, two family to multifamily. Staff finds that it meets our comprehensive plan, the housing need assessment aligning with that, and find that all the mitigations can be mitigated through our processes. Other than that, happy to answer any questions your commission may have. Thank you.
All right, the public comment period is now open. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak? Great. If you would go ahead and make sure the green light is on there. State your name and your address.
My name is Annalisa Selden. My address is 385 Diane Lane, Soldotna, Alaska, 99669. I am the owner with my husband of the property on Night Drive.
Okay.
Do you have any questions for me? I think staff put together a great report and it answered my questions too.
Okay. I don't think we have any questions.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Right. If there are any members of the public who are online, you are free to use the hand raising app. If you're on the telephone, I believe you can press star, what is it, star 9? Nobody? Okay. Is there anybody else from the public who would wish to speak? Okay. All right. The public comment period is now closed. Are there any commission comments or questions for staff?
This one here, as I was looking at this, I see that in item number 8 in the description, or in the explanation here, it says, while multi-family zoning increases density, potential impact regarding traffic, privacy, and drainage or technical nature would be addressed through the city standard site plan review and validation meeting processes, and that's great. I absolutely appreciate that. I just wanted to know, does that also cover sewage and other utilities, sewage, water, other hookups, things like that? Is the capacity there to handle the additional occupancy on that land where it is built up? As long as it is, I have no concern.
Thank you, Vice Chair Spindler. Yes, our infrastructure, water and sewer connection has a capacity to, along with particularly as we know with all the existing multifamily, there's no issues with that. And because of the existing, it definitely is a good property and project for higher density use in this area.
Are there any other commissioner comments or questions for staff?
Just a comment. I'm excited to see this rezone and know so many friends, mother-in-laws, myself, who would love for there to be more shared multifamily style housing. And I know there's all sorts that we've seen before, like big apartments or duplexes, but there's all sorts of exciting, fun ways to put people together in configurations that helps them age well and learn from each other. And so I'm excited to see what the applicant dreams up and does. And thanks for bringing this forward to us.
Commissioner Burton here. I agree. This was well put together. I think the current zoning is a little too restrictive. And my understanding is to put multiple homes, we'd have to subdivide and there'd be a long process. So I think this is a wise decision to change the zoning in this, and I support this. All right, are there any remaining comments from commissioners? Okay. Staff, can we please call for the vote?
Commissioner Ruffridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Strasbaugh,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler,
Yes.
Commissioner Spindler,
Yes.
and Commissioner Burton.
Yes.
All right. The motion passes.
Okay. We are going to move on to, Resolution PZ 2026-006, which is recommending approval for the Soldotna Junction Subdivision Edition number 24. As we stated at the beginning, this application has been withdrawn. So we will move on to the next agenda item, which is unfinished business. And there is no unfinished business. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, new business. All right, recommendation on the substitute ordinance 2025-039, amending the zoning code on short-term rental regulations as well as a laydown memo containing additional amendments provided by Council Member Chilson. So may I have a motion to recommend approval? Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. So before I call the staff report, I would like to invite Councilmember Chilson to speak first.
Here.
Thank you.
Oh, for some reason I had two and I didn't know why, but yeah, obviously this one's yours.
And if you would, please walk the commission through the intent behind these specific amendments. The floor is yours.
Certainly. Can you all hear me? Mic working? Okay, perfect. Before I speak to any amendments, I'll speak to the substitute ordinance proposed in the agenda originally and the intent behind that. So this ordinance originally came before the P&Z and eventually with the unanimous support of the P&Z to council with the intent of trying to simplify our permitting process in the city by basically unifying it so it's no longer fragmented between different zoning districts and also simplify the application process for operators of STRs, and then also allow us to potentially get data on trends of housing as it's used for short-term rentals within the city. Based on feedback that we received from the community and through our initial public hearing process at a council level, we discovered that there's still potential to further improve this and simplify it. So collaborating with local community stakeholders and staff, we kind of went back to the drawing board on this and took a fresh look at it for potential ways to further simplify the code that was being proposed. What this substitute ordinance would do before you is a couple of different things. First of all, it would remove the requirement for a 24/7 contact to be on hand. It simplifies parking language by removing duplicative specifications and now just references existing code. We've removed the 5-bedroom capacity limit for residential buildings and simplified it down to a 50% cap on units on the property. I believe that's the majority of the changes proposed in the substitute ordinance. I will let Director Mitchell speak to anything else I may be missing on that. And then following the assembly of that substitute ordinance, we kept working it and found some additional ways we could further improve this. So what I have before you tonight in the laydown memo are some additional changes that I would like to make to the substitute. And what those are one, removing the 50% limit for single-family homes with ADUs. So effectively, if you had a single-family home with an ADU, rather than renting the home or the ADU, you could rent both. For units that are duplexes or triplexes, they would be limited to 2 units rather than 50%, which is essentially 1 under any circumstances. So now you can rent both units of a duplex or 2 of a 3 of a triplex. And that's essentially it. What I have here with the additional amendments I'm recommending that the commission adopt into the substitute ordinance. At this point, I would pass it to Director Mitchell if she can expand on anything else I might have missed.
Okay, we have the staff report.
Absolutely, Chair Burton. So I just pulled the summary of changes I updated to reflect the laydown. Of course, I'll just breeze through it, but Councilmember Chilson highlighted the big changes, but just to give an update on the overall summary changes with this substitute ordinance. So what was previously approved by your commission was just the original ordinance to require all short-term rental operators to obtain a permit and not make a distinguish between owner occupancy and the zoning district. And then tax compliance, this is more of a cleanup in-house. Is really the code required a physical tax compliance certificate. Since I've been here, I've learned there's a way to streamline that, and that's just really staff emailing the borough versus having the applicant go to the borough and get it filled out and then dropping it off here. So now it's just very simple, just saying it needs to be current on all sales and the lodging tax payments with the city and the borough. Density limits, we'll go into that with table 2, but again, what Councilmember Chilson have noted, limiting of 50% dwelling units and making exceptions for duplex and triplexes and then the ADU. So I crossed it out there just to show the changes with the amendments to the substitute ordinance that was brought in the laydown. Parking rules, it's just a cleanup, making it short and sweet and clear and concise. Occupancy limit, again, what was mentioned is the current code says limit of 5 guest rooms and further currently states up to 10 guests. Really difficult to enforce. So removing that is in the best interest of staff because that's really hard to say who comes and walks in. And when I've had to enforce this, people will say, well, I'm just visiting. So it's very difficult to enforce that guest. Then point of contact, as noted, this is a big one. You know, it came down to really asking what is the intent of this, and the revision of this is working with someone who is a point of contact to help ensure that they can make decisions to fix things. Because when I have reached out for a code violation, it's like, well, I can't do anything. I'm not the property owner, even though I'm a local point of contact. So this is a really good refinement of that. It strains the accountability. And then appeal process, just removing redundant code references in multiple places. And so then we go to the scenario table, which reflects the laydown is, again, the 50%. So in this case, a single family, they can rent it out for single family. The 50% does not apply. The home in the ADU, again, does not apply. That 50% cap does not apply. So if you have a house with an ADU, both units can be rented out for short-term rental. Duplex, both units can be rented out. A triplex, again, 50% doesn't apply because you can have 2 out of 3. So you preserve 1 unit out of a triplex. And then, of course, 4plex or more, that 50% limit applies. So other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions or provide any clarification in terms of the code itself and the amendment.
I did have one quick question. This would be to Director Mitchell. these amendments that you and I discussed, we actually don't have a specific motion language for modifying the language of the ordinance. So for the purpose of the commission's needed actions tonight, would you request that the commission make motions to amend the substitute ordinance with the intent specified in the bullet points of the laid-on memo, and then staff will formalize the language to match that intent? Or do you have specific language that we need to make the motion with?
I don't have a specific language. We try to streamline this by putting under new business. So as long as someone makes the motion to, for your amendments as a lay down to incorporate it, staff will include it in
Okay,
the memo to
for
council. Yeah.
tonight's purpose,
Yeah.
members of the commission don't necessarily have to make motions to amend and then
Correct.
state specific language that will be in the final code. They can basically make motions to amend these specific intent items on the memo.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. That clarifies that. So I of course, would fully request that the commission consider these 3 amendment points and make those tonight. In addition to the 3 amendments on this particular memo here that are before you with this laydown, I'd also like to request 1 minor amendment be considered by the commission, and that's on the local point of contact. That would be in section C, subsection 1, where it specifies that local contact. So the substitute ordinance removes the requirement for 24/7, but it still says local contact. I would make a request that someone could make a motion to amend that and just simply remove the word local. And the point being with that, as Director Mitchell mentioned, they've had issues in the past where they require a contact be on file, and then they call that contact, and they may be a local contact, but then they say, sorry, I can't help you. I'm not the owner of the property. I think it would be prudent that we just have a contact who's responsible for the party on file.
Okay, thank you. The public comment period is now open. So please, as you come up, make sure the green light is on and state your name and your address. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Tyson Cox, Soldotna. I also have many multifamily units here in Soldotna. We do have 1 short-term rental in Soldotna. And so that's why this was a concern for me. I did make some of these, I came to the council meeting. I'm sorry, I do apologize for not making the first meeting here, but I didn't catch it until it got to the council. And so I made that council meeting and I had some issues with it. I did testify at that point, and I very much appreciate Mr. Chilson and Ms. Mitchell then looking at some of those things and looking at some of the ideas from somebody who has some property in that space. And so the only thing I was going to say is I actually really like the this amended version. There are a couple things just to note that we did talk about, and I think most of them have been taken care of with this. But the 3 things we have a real estate group where several of the members of that group also do some long-term, but some of them do short-term, which you're going to see. That's a lot of what happens is a lot of these folks are doing both. They're doing long-term and short-term rentals. The first part is on the original memo, it talks about the application fee. And one of the things we talked about was not having a fee. And I think that's going to be discussed I was told it had to be, it's not through this. It will be through another mechanism at the council level. But the reason I wanted to mention it is because, we're asking folks to collect a tax, which then takes time, but we're asking them to pay a fee to then collect a tax that takes time, which it costs a lot of time and effort. If you have more than a couple, you could spend several hours every month trying to determine how much that you owe for that particular tax. The next one was that density limit. I'm actually personally, I am fairly comfortable with the idea that it's 2 units up to a 4-plex and then it goes to 50%. Some of the folks in our group think it should have been allowed up to 4 units total. And the reality is for me personally, it doesn't bother me a whole lot. I talked to Ms. Mitchell about it a little bit the other day. She can verify, but I don't believe there are any 4-plexes that are actually all 4 of them being utilized that way as a short-term rental. I believe she had told me there's only 1 duplex even in the area that is doing both sides of it as a short-term rental. And we didn't clarify, but I might even suggest that those ones aren't even year-round anyways. A lot of them are only two quarters out of the year. So I personally think it's probably not necessary, but it's not going to bother what I do. That is definitely not in my model to take my fourplexes out of the long-term realm, and to do that is, if anything, I could see people maybe doing one to make a little extra money here and there, but that it's not in my business model at all. And then the point of contact, I very much appreciate taking out that word local, and it's not because I don't think people should be local. It's because my argument to that is anymore, for one, we don't have, not everyone has a 907 number anymore. You can have it from anywhere. So how are you going to determine whether or not someone's here when you call them? They could be anywhere in the world, and myself included. If I were to decide to maybe be a snowbird or something and go outside, if somebody called me as a point of contact, they would not know if I was here or not, and I could still probably get things done if I needed to. So if people are running a business, to me, that's part of that, and I think they can run that business otherwise. So I think it's a good change. Like I say, is overall, I think it's good. I think it's good that this will be a mechanism to help track some of the data for this stuff. I think that's important. I also think it's very important that if I'm doing what I'm supposed to do and I'm paying for the tax that is to be collected, I think that everyone that's in this realm should be doing the same thing. And so I do think some of this is important to have, and I just wanted to make those comments that I think this is going in the right direction. I personally think that it ends up being a little bit more than necessary right now, not that it might not be necessary in the future, but having the code, I think, is important, because that allows you to make those changes if you need to in the future, to tighten something up if necessary, those kinds of things. I just want to remind everyone that, if we get too stringent in the city of Soldotna, we're not like Homer and Seward, where there's actual physical barriers to where those folks can go. In the city of Soldotna, if we get too stringent on these things, and we're trying to do it to collect a bed tax for a revenue source, is those people will move just outside the city limits, and we still won't have the housing that we're looking for if we get too stringent on it. So I ask to be very careful with that, because it wouldn't be that hard for folks to do that. But anyways, thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, if there are any members of the public online, you may use the hand raising app, or if you're on the telephone, press *9. Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, the public comment period is now closed. Are there any commissioner comments for staff? Yes.
If I may, Chair, I'd like to expand on Mr. Cox's comments and just provide some additional clarification on those. To his point about the application fee, I do agree that I feel that removing the application fee for this process would be reasonable, especially given the fact that as it's currently written with the existing $50 fee, which is not part of is not part of this existing section of code. Existing units would be grandfathered in, so it'd only be new units that would be required to remit that $50 fee anyway. So the removal of that fee is a very negligible amount of revenue to the city, and it eases the process for new units. That is not something that is within the purview of this commission. However, it would be set through, I believe, a resolution that would update the fee schedule. So there will be a companion resolution coming forward to council at some point in the future, should this pass, to modify that fee schedule down to a $0 fee for STR permits. And on the point about the local point of contact, as previously mentioned, I would recommend that the commission consider an amendment to remove the word local. Expanding on that, it might be worth considering, rather than just outright removing the word local, maybe just replacing it with the word primary. So.
Thank you. Okay, are there any commissioner comments for staff?
Where's defining what a short-term rental unit is. We talked about, there's a temporary accommodation not to exceed for a term of less than 30 days or 1 month, whichever is shorter. Is that meant to mean 30 consecutive days, or are there rights in that 30-day period that can occur and still be classify it as a short-term rental unit. I just, again, I'm not trying to over wordsmith this, but I want to make sure that it's clear what is a short-term rental unit. If staff can, perhaps give you some clarification.
Thank you, Vice Chair Spindler. It doesn't say consecutive days, but it is intended just to mean 30 days consecutive of the month. Yes, for clarification. And the way it's amended is to mirror what's in the lodging tax. Even though that's the intent, it could use the word consecutive to be clear, but we haven't had that issue. I think it implies the fact that it says or 1 month, whichever is shorter. It kind of insinuates that it's talking about the month, the 30 days within a month.
I certainly support it, but, just wanted to make sure we've got an opportunity to make some revisions here to clean up and make it a little clearer. So that's the only reason I brought that forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't even think about it when I was just trying to mirror the short-term lodging to match both, but it doesn't hurt to go ahead and specify that.
Commissioner Ruffridge, you may speak.
Thank you. Yes, this is Commissioner Ruffridge. I actually cannot hear very clearly Vice Chair Spindler. I just wanted to put that input in. And then, so I apologize if any of this is repetitive or was already said, but I actually really appreciate the amendments. They were, almost everyone was a question that I was going to have. So it was perfect to hear that tonight. And yeah, thank you for all the work.
Thank you, Commissioner Ruffridge. Okay. Excuse me. So as we begin discussion here, we have some proposed changes that I want to make sure that we are all clear on. One, of course, being changing the local to primary in section C sub 1. So we remove the local, change it to primary. That's one of the suggestions. And now correct me if I'm wrong, there are 3 more. And
Correct. The 3 that are included on the laydown memo on
Yes.
the bolded bullet points there. Removal of the 50% limit for single-family homes with an ADU, and then revising the density limits for duplexes and triplexes to allow for up to 2 dwelling units of a duplex or triplex.
Okay. All right. And so the fourplex 50% limit applies. Max STR, so short-term rental units 2. And hearing the from the public, Tyson Cox, and I want to make sure I have this right. And I'm sorry, I'm asking this after the fact here. Some of your comments here, we had the application fee density limit. The 2 units up to, let's see here. So for my clarity, the fourplex would be 2 units up to the fourplex, and then anything after that, up to 50%.
Basically, anything below a fourplex, so single-family homes with
Yes.
ADUs, those are technically 2-unit properties.
Mhm.
Duplexes, triplexes, any of those would be allowed to have up to 2 units.
Yeah.
Once you hit fourplex or bigger, you are capped at the 50% utilization. And the intent behind that is, again, because at a certain point, you kind of have to draw a line of where does this property become a boutique hotel, and also, of course, preserving housing stock. As this was originally crafted, we would have that 50% limit for all properties. I felt this was a reasonable compromise by removing or heavily liberalizing that restriction all the way up through triplex and meeting the spirit of the original intent of this ordinance.
Yeah, and yeah, that makes sense. I was interested to see the memo from the original, because the intent was to preserve some of that housing stock for long-term use in there.
And again, as Tyson mentioned in his comments, we have to be careful with restrictions on this. So as this is presented, I feel that this is a very light-handed approach for restricting. There's very little restriction that's happening with this other than, of course, the 50% restriction for quadplexes and up. And to our knowledge, there's no one operating those in the city anyway at this point in time. So we're not affecting any existing operators. Our main goal is to get data through this permitting process, and I don't want to place a burden on STR operators. So we've had a lot of discussion with staff about how we can simplify this language, how we can make this administratively easy for them, and we've gotten creative. And my understanding is that should this pass, we would be unifying the permitting process with the application used for the sales tax collection for short-term rental operations. So from an operator's perspective, there's one unified application they submit for their sales tax collection permit and also for the STR permit. It's all bundled in one. It'd be really simplistic for them. We're really not doing much as far as restrictions right now, other than that 50% limit for fourplexes and up. We're taking a really light-handed approach and just trying to gather data. And my hope is that, as we start to gather this data in the years moving forward, it shows that there's really not an issue with short-term rentals. They're good for our economy. They bring tourists in, and we have a healthy balance as it is, and no action is needed. But worst case, if the data does show that we're seeing damaging effects of STRs on local housing stock, then we have the data to make informed policy decisions at some point in the future. But again, right now it's not an issue. I hope it doesn't become an issue, but I want us to be an informed city and have data on it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so before we start our discussion on this resolution, we should probably get on the table these revisions. So I'm going to attempt to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I did have one comment. I know that a big priority is to collect the data on this. I see that owner occupied STRs are exempt, and the ones that I personally know have STRs do owner occupy them. So I feel like that's going to cut a big chunk of your data out. So just wanted to get a little clarification on why that was.
I believe the intent behind that is because with an owner occupy, you still have someone who is a resident of the city that has long-term housing there. My interest with this personally is housing units that would traditionally be utilized for long-term year-round housing for our residents being potentially repurposed into short-term rentals exclusively. So in an owner-occupy situation, I'm personally not as concerned about that because that's a situation where that resident has year-long housing. They're just renting out part of their property for short-term rental versus if you have a single-family home that has historically been a starter home for families that want to live here and is bought up and converted into an Airbnb exclusively, that's one less housing unit on the market for families here in Soldotna. Yep.
So I would like to, before we can consider this amendment, I would like to consider modifying the language. So I would like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to strike the word local in section C sub 1. All right. Okay. So I'm going to yield, making that motion to anybody else who, if anybody else would like to make any type of motion.
Right now we're in discussion, correct? Still? And the main motion is already on the table, which basically, since it's a recommendation to amend the zoning code, I think it implies that we're going to incorporate these amendments as laid down. So if we need to we can add, anyone can add during the discussion, or would you like us to vote on this and then make that small change? I don't think it really needs.
Right now, the motion on the table is for the substitute ordinance as presented. So someone would need to make a motion to amend the substitute ordinance. And
okay, I'm happy to do that.
Probably recommend, because we have the changes that I recommended in the laydown, all nicely defined there. I would probably recommend the commission consider one motion to adopt the three changes identified in the laydown motion, or I'm sorry, adopt the three changes outlined in the laydown memo, and then maybe a separate motion to change the local point of contact language, since that was just something I pitched last second during the meeting.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm happy to move to incorporate the amendments in the laydown. I think that can be a clean and simple. But I need a second.
Commissioner Ruffridge, I'll second that.
And so that we can vote on.
All right. Can we call the vote?
Commissioner Spindler,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler,
Yes.
Commissioner Strasbaugh,
Yes.
Commissioner Ruffridge,
Yes.
and Commissioner Burton.
Yes.
And with 5 yes votes, the amendment passes.
And I'd like to make a second amendment to strike the word local and replace it with primary when we're referring to the point of contact within the short-term rental substitute ordinance.
And I second.
Thanks.
All right, can we call for the vote?
Okay. Commissioner Ruffridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Strasbaugh,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler,
Yes.
Commissioner Spindler,
Yes.
Commissioner Burton.
Yes.
With 5 yes votes, motion passes.
And then we go back to the main.
If I may ask a question, maybe I missed it, but I don't recall who made the motion to adopt the substitute ordinance initially. I don't know. I just want to make sure that didn't get skipped. And for some reason, I feel like we just went right into a staff report and then public hearing. Was there actually a motion? Okay, good. My memory is just eluding.
Commissioner Vogler seconded.
Perfect. Thank you.
No, it is easy to get lost in all these.
Seen that happen before.
Yep. Yeah. And yeah, and before we vote on the main motion, I just, I'm glad this is before us. I think the spirit of this comes from personal experiences from friends and family that we know who have a hard time finding a place to rent in Soldotna because our footprint is so small. There's just little housing. And so I'm glad that the study came out. And this will be helpful to make sure that, you know, we can have places for all sizes of pocketbooks to live in Soldotna. And, you know, we're a hot commodity in July for short term, but we're a hot commodity, you know, for other times of year too. And so I think it's great. And I just, because we're so small, I think we really have to be mindful of how we limit housing. So thanks for this, all the time spent on the amendments and the ordinance itself.
Thank you. Yes, we are.
Yeah, I completely agree. The other things that I was considering is not just tourism, which is a very strong driver for our economy, but I was considering the turnover that's going on in Nikiski that's going to require short-term housing for a couple of months. While that goes on, I was considering, having worked at the hospital in my past career, I was considering doctors and nurses and other healthcare providers coming in on a temporary basis that require short-term housing. I was considering bringing in teachers into the community who require short-term housing up front. So there are a lot of constituencies and groups that this will serve, and this, I believe, addresses in a very positive way a lot of different things, not limited only to tourism, though certainly it does touch that too.
Thank you. Are there any other commissioner comments? No? We call for the vote?
Great. Commissioner Spindler,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler,
Yes.
Commissioner Strasbaugh,
Yes.
Commissioner Ruffridge,
Yes.
and Commissioner Burton.
Yes.
You have 5 yes votes, motion passes.
All right, thank you. Now, Moving on to recommendation for the renaming and naming of new streets. Soldotna Junction Subdivision Edition number 24. May I have a motion to recommend approval?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. May we have the staff report?
Thank you, Chair Burton. I'm going to have Beth pull up the preliminary plat with the proposed street names. So it's in your packet, but just so we're all looking at the same plat with the street naming within the code, it does say that your commission is to provide a recommendation to council before they approve a street renaming or naming. Therefore, the applicant provided this, but they weren't aware of our suffixes. So therefore, the only new street name that's being proposed here is, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Hudek Drive. The remaining are extensions of existing street, like Devon Drive, we know exists there, but now there's going to be an extension of it into a cul-de-sac there. And then you got Foothill Road to the north. Staff is recommending that the suffix be changed to align with our street naming appendix, Exhibit A, and then East Farnsworth Avenue. It should just continuation of Farnsworth Boulevard. And what I'm presenting is to align with Exhibit A, not to say that that's how every part of the city is named. If you really look at it, Foothill Road continues on for that northern part of Foothill Road. I think in the past previous plat, it was identified as Foothill Circle, and that's what staff is recommending if we're to follow this Exhibit A for our method for street naming according to what's codified. It should be Circle. Hudek should not be drive, ending in drive. It should be lane. Really, if you're looking at the Exhibit A, it tells you how to go about providing the correct suffix corrections. So Devon Road should actually be Devon Court on that side of the street because it's ending in a cul-de-sac. And then Farnsworth should be Way because it kind of terminates into Hudek Lane. So really just following to the T, the Exhibit A method for street naming, and that's what staff is recommending, that Foothill Road be changed to Foothill Circle, because we don't see with this preliminary plat that it's going to continue on. And then Devon Drive would actually be Devon Court because it's going to end in a cul-de-sac and Farnsworth Way again. And then that's really happy to answer any questions, but this allowed me to really dive into our code and follow this method for street naming. And this is actually very identical to the borough standard. The borough probably updated their Exhibit A with minor adjustments. Otherwise, this is the Exhibit A. You probably saw on it. It says Kenai Peninsula Borough. It's the same method that they follow. And that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any commission comments or questions for staff?
Commissioner Ruffridge here. I just had a question. I love the idea of having things be named appropriately, and it's my concern was just that if people would be notified, like and how they would be notified, you know, like if just on addresses and how that works, and then how long it is before things are updated, like Google Maps. If anybody, I don't even know if anyone knows that, but those were just the thoughts I had in regards to the change.
Thank you, Commissioner Ruffridge. Happy to answer the process actually when it comes to street addressing, because when it comes to our city, we submit the address changes to the borough, and then they'll update their map and they'll send it to other utilities, USPS. We also send a letter once they confirm that they've updated the emergency 911 system. Then we send the letter to the property owners itself, just telling them that their address has been changed. And it usually takes within a week that the borough will get back and confirm an address change. We submit it electronically through their GIS mapping, and we'll get a confirmation typically within a week, and then we send out a letter. Hopefully that answers your question about the process.
Wonderful. Yes, it does.
Are there any other commissioner comments or questions for staff?
Just a comment, and what you're doing is great. I love standardizing things. It's great. I happen to live on West Riverview Avenue, and if you're familiar, there are multiple West Riverview Avenues. We run parallel, but we don't connect, and we don't even line up. We just run, or east and west. And so we're avenues, and more than once I've had people, because ours ends in the bush, basically. There's a bunch of undeveloped land at the end of our street. And I've had delivery drivers come by going, can you tell me where this is? No, it's on the other one. You have to go around, go up Cobuck, and then hang a left, and head for the river and da-da-da. So I just, whenever you decide that you have to that you have to tackle that one, I have nothing but sympathy and empathy for you, because it's going to be an interesting thing. And there's also an east readout, in case you're wondering, and that's right over by the Fred Meyers, which is no place close to the west readout, and on and on. So, any attempts along this line, I realize they're gargantuan. I appreciate all the work you're putting into it, and I applaud you, and I wish you very much success. I don't know how you're going to do it.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from commissioners or questions for staff? All right. If there are no objections to this, we will move to recommend approval of the street name changes for the Soldotna Junction Subdivision Edition number 24. Hearing none, it is so ordered. All right, we are moving to the next item, public comments without prior notice. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment? All right, thank you. State your name and address and make sure the green light is on.
Tyson Cox, Soldotna. I was just going to thank you guys for considering those amendments. And then I was going to clarify a little bit. For a lot of folks are using these. So a lot of folks like myself, the model that we're using is short-term rentals for the 2 quarters that hit the summer. And then you're actually going to a midterm rental a lot of times, which would be your traveling nurses that you had mentioned. It would be traveling nurses on anywhere from 3 to 6 month contracts for that other time period, because what that allows you to do is keep them furnished and have that same kind of model going. But now you're on what you would consider not a short term anymore, because it's an over 30-day contract. And so just something to note is that they are being utilized within the, and I'm not saying all of them. I do know a few people that don't put anyone in them in the wintertime. I do know some people that do that. But I would not say that that's probably the most common model people are using, because there is quite a need for the midterm rentals for our travelers, especially in the medical field. And so we do get those quite a lot. I've also rented them to people who are doing the turnaround. I've done that as well. And in both Soldotna and in Kenai, they're close enough that people will utilize either area. It's not far enough for them to worry about. The other thing I was going to mention real quick is and this is just my data, just for your guys' information, is when I looked up, and it's not easy for somebody to look up because not everything has exact addresses. So you're looking at a map and things on like Airbnb. And in the summertime, I'm finding that there's somewhere between 70 and 100 probably in the Soldotna area available. Out of those, I was only finding, and this is what I found for just in this July, is availability would be like 9 apartment ones that they're calling apartments, which I was telling Mr. Chilson that they're probably not lying, because if somebody says it's a house, but then they go and get an apartment, they're probably going to give you really bad reviews. So people are pretty transparent about what their property is. And then the other one was there's only 6 that were on there that were guest houses, which would be probably your ADUs or something of the like. And just something to think about is that's how they're getting them. And so a little bit of information on mine, just so you know what kind of properties sometimes are utilized this way, is we own a building in the limited commercial area that we have turned into an office downstairs for our business. And the upstairs is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. But why we like to utilize it this way is sometimes we have a space down there where we sometimes are using I'll use a saw, things like that. And it's nice to have it on a short term, because when you have families and stuff, you would get a lot more complaints about people. And so for a mixed use kind of building like that, it actually works very well. And so for us, that's a way for us to utilize that and still be contributing to part of our community, especially in the wintertime with I can't stress enough how many we need for people doing the midterm rentals for travelers. In the summertime, the travelers, I've had several of them actually call me and say, we can't come, we're not coming because we can't find a place. Because most of those do turn into daily weeklies in the summertime. But anyways, just a little bit of information on it. I appreciate very much you guys considering this and how much time you guys and thoughtfulness that you guys put into it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the next item, informational items, and there are no informational items. So we'll move on to the reports item. Okay, so we have mayor and council reports. Council member Chilson.
Thank you. Go ahead and just give a report on recent ongoings at the city council level. Will be fairly brief. There's not a ton that's happened since the Planning and Zoning Commission last met. The biggest one would be on our February 25th regular council meeting. We had a pretty substantial hearing on the riverfront redevelopment ordinance to establish that district and the code that goes back with that. That was failed. I believe you've likely already heard a report on that though, because I think that there was a P&Z meeting following that council meeting. So I won't go too much depth on that. For our March 25th meeting last week, we actually had a work session preceding that, specifically diving into city financing and specifically around capital projects that we have coming up in the mid and long term that need to be addressed. Some of them actually in the short term, I should say. Things like the ice rink at the sports center and the compressor system that goes with that, Marydale pumps at our wastewater treatment facility. There are a number of large capital projects that are coming up for the city, and it's a difficult position that we find ourselves in given the continuing diminishment of funding from the state to support those projects. So the focus of this work session is really what do we have coming up that we have to fund and how can we fund it? And there's some discussion about different mechanisms that we can use leveraging our existing investments, potentially new revenues with sales taxes or modifications to sales tax code. So that was a really productive discussion. There's of course no action that's been determined at this point in time, but it's something we're working on as a council. And then following that at our regular council meeting, it was a fairly light agenda. We really only had 2 action items that evening, specifically for ordinances that we dealt with. One of which was an appropriation for $900,000 for the shop roof that needs to get redone, and then also another appropriation of $235,000 to support the roof structure that's being built over our sand storage facility for the city. And what's interesting about both of those is those were appropriations for existing funds to be transferred from the field house. Well, basically, we're transferring money from bond revenue that was to support the field house originally to these projects because we don't really have good ways to fund them otherwise. But it's not like we're diminishing the field house because this is leftover money from that project essentially at this point. So just a routine transfer to support those. And then upcoming, we do have a consideration of a rezone for the Shield subdivision from commercial to rural. This is something I believe you guys addressed at your last P&Z meeting. So we'll be reviewing that through public hearing process at the upcoming council meeting later this month. That's really all I have to report to the commission. I'd be happy to stand for any questions any of the commissioners may have. Thank you.
Through the chair, just a question. I wasn't able to attend the meeting where the riverfront redevelopment failed, which is very disappointing because, man, that has been years and years and years and years and years in the making, in an attempt to try and get this riverfront sort of downtown corridor to at least just have sort of a stopgap on basically being told about a downtown that we'd like to see for the present and the future of Soldotna. In your opinion, like, why did it fail?
I will start with saying I also share the frustration and disappointment on that as well. I was one of 2 council members that voted to support that rezone. I recognize that this has been a long-standing project. As you mentioned, we've put years of not only the commission's time, but staff time, consultants, community. It's been a very substantial process with inputs from all over Soldotna going into it. Frankly, I think it came down to concern from the community about impacts on their existing businesses or their ability to grow future businesses. However, I would counter and say, in recognition of that, I think our staff did an excellent job of addressing those needs through potential changes to the restrictions that would go with that zoning district. I believe when it came to council at that point in time, we were discussing significantly reducing the restrictions that would have been applied to that riverfront development district. And based on the feedback that we received during that public hearing process, we had a number of local business owners come out that shared their concerns. I don't believe there was a single one that identified an existing business operation that would have been negatively impacted by it. So again, that's my personal frustration with it. But on looking ahead and trying to find some light in this, I would say that the work that has gone into it is not necessarily gone to waste. I believe that we will likely see at some point in the future some iteration of this come forward again for consideration by the Planning and Zoning Commission and eventually to council as well. It's just going to be an effort in finding a way to retool that and find a balance that meets the needs and priorities of our community and can, again, to your point, support the goals that we've established as a city administration, but again, also walking that line of finding balance with the community and what they will accept and be mutually beneficial.
Are there any other questions for Councilman Chilson? All right, thank you. Thank you, Councilman Chilson. All right, the city manager is not present, so we will not have a report from the city manager. Director of ED&P, Director Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair Burton. I'll keep it short as well. Should have provided as an informational item, but the 2026 Industry Overview Forum hosted by KPED is on Thursday, April 23rd in Seward. If you haven't been to one of those, I recommend, if you have time to go to Seward, to go to those. It really gives an overview on a regional level of all the things that are occurring. And I think that will help us kind of also as a commission to things we can focus on, knowing what's coming in and what's coming through and what's expecting in terms of growth and even housing. So if you can make it, I encourage you to go. And if you would like to go, and I probably should have, and I was just thinking of it right now, since we do have funding for P&Z Commission training, if you would like to go, we can provide accommodation expense covered by the city for the night before, the night of. I think that's fair, considering that there's not a lot of opportunity for your commission. I haven't found any, been looking for it. So, so I'm offering it now, and I'll follow up with the email if you're interested in that. And then in terms of tonight, just wanted to go over like my commitment to you, as I noted, to streamline our processes. And I mentioned this to the Chair Burton before the meeting with the street renaming. That process it's very objective. It's very, this is the rule and this is how we're going to go about it. I don't see the need to bring it forward to your commission. So I would like to revise that and just make it administratively that staff will review it and bring it directly forth to council. When I was looking at the history of probably at the time when this was codified was when commissioners or the advisory board at the time would actually review these requests on the floor. And so that's why the decision or recommendation was coming directly from your commission. At this time, if you are comfortable with it, I would like to bring forth an amendment to remove that. And so, yeah, to bring less of that and focus on code amendments that would really be more beneficial to the city and bring forth to your commission for consideration. Tonight's process is a little different, as you know. The rezone or the substitute ordinance was brought forth not as a resolution as you typically have seen. The reason for that is from a staff and administrative level, I will write a resolution that mirrors an ordinance. So I'm just like finding myself, why am I copying and pasting a resolution with the exact same whereas clauses minus the sections, or is just saying PZ recommends council amend this. And then in the ordinance for council, it just says council will amend this. So they're literally identical. I think this streamlines the process of you're going to see the ordinance exactly how council will see it versus resolution and minor language changes. So that is my hope to move forward with it. And of course, anything that any changes to things like this, I do check with the city clerk to make sure we're consistent in our processes at council levels to mimic it as well. Things are starting to pick up with ED&P. Storefront improvement grant was open. I mentioned it at the last meeting. We have awarded the goods for their signage. If you see it out there, it's kind of been abandoned for quite some time. So the final amount is to be determined because we've conditioned a couple things that we want to see as a complete project with the sign replacement. A condition was to paint the pole as well as part of that, not just put a sign up and fill up that empty space. So I'm thinking with the revisions that we're asking them, it will get them the full amount of 50% up to the max 7,500. So I'm excited to see that and the proper signage there. So next round will probably be June here because we do February, June, and September. Other than that, if your commission has any questions for staff, I'm happy to answer it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Mitchell. Are there any questions from the commission for Director Mitchell? One quick question about the KPED and Seward, April 23rd. I appreciate the city offering to accommodate the commission members who want to attend. Do you know if I'm assuming there will be a Zoom link for this meeting. I just wanted to verify whether that is the case.
That is a very good question. I feel like they have, but yes, there you go.
Okay. And where would we find that Zoom link?
I will send it to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right. Are there any other commissioner comments? Okay. Thank you, Director Mitchell. All right. We will move on to commissioner comments. And we will start from this end.
Yeah, nothing for me. It's been a productive meeting. Appreciate it.
I don't have anything either.
Yeah, yes, I agree. This was a productive meeting, and I appreciate all the work that has been put into all of this and seeing this move forward.
It's so nice to be a member of the body instead of running the meetings. This is my first time in a long time, it feels like. I don't know, 5 years or something, maybe less, maybe more. 7 years? I can't remember. But I'm curious, actually, I suppose I should have asked this question for staff, what the next step on riverfront redevelopment is, and it's okay if it's murky, but yeah.
That is a great question. So, part of this process, the city had hired a project coordinator, which we still have, Stephanie Queens. We are reconvening with her and then actually trying to schedule a meeting. It's been rescheduled a couple times with the consultants who drafted the plan to kind of get their take of what are next steps now that the rezone hasn't moved forward. What are suggestions on how to get there? For me personally, as the director, I know that your commission, the big concern was, the storage yard, the incompatible uses. While the rezone can't move forward, I think we can do standards for storage yards to make it at least exactly, because right now standards, yes, while conditional uses are required for storage yards, I think if we have a high expectation of for storage yard for buffering rather than on the fly for each conditional use, standardized storage yard maybe along the frontage of the spur, you can see it, there's more buffering landscaping requirement versus when you go through the discretionary, we're not really talking that in detail, or we kind of are we require one of the other and it's not consistent. So I think creating standards maybe for that would help for those incompatible uses, like how to mitigate the buffer and create a standard across the board for that use. I think that would be one way to mitigate it. I'm trying to get creative here, and maybe if we do a rezone for that area to prohibit storage yard, um, you know, I think another reason obviously is too soon. So I'm trying to get creative here, and I think that may be an option to move forward, right?
Yeah.
Because the downside is most of our commercial corridor is along Sterling and Kenai highway, spur highway. So I can't just make that corridor and say storage yard not allowed without rezoning it. So the only creative way is, yeah, to create standards specifically for that zoning district. But we can work on that if your commission is supportive of that. I'm happy to come back with something to work on that and other incompatible uses that you want to work around. I definitely can sit on it and bring forth something, maybe a work session of maybe collaborating back now with more new members of what things we want to see or mitigate and get creative on how a path forward for the area as staff continues to meet on the other end with the riverfront stuff, how to move that forward. But I think with or without the riverfront, I think that's still a concern,
Mhm.
right? So based on
Yeah.
my history of all the minutes I've read, so happy
Yeah.
to move that forward if that's supported by your commission.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons I like to work on this commission is it feels like it's the nitty gritty. The devils are in the details in this commission, the planning commission and zoning. We get into the weeds. So the staff really helps us. They do the heavy lifting, and then we, as members of the community, try to think about all the examples and stories we've seen, and try and think forward to kind of based on, oh, that didn't quite go the way that we wanted it to. There was it's a fine storage yard, but the buffer really didn't buffer anything by Mackey Lake. It's not good or bad. It's just, oh, okay, that buffer didn't work. Or there's just so many examples of like, ooh, that could have gone better. And I've seen so many of them over, we all have through the years, but when you sit on this body, you really pay attention to those details. And I think that was one of the most exciting from a planning commissioner's point of perspective aspects of that giant, God, it was like 800 pages of recommendations from the riverfront redevelopment consultants. And it was really cool. There was a lot of pictures. So it's worth looking at. And there's lots of exciting ideas in there. But I think the thing that is in our laps now is the one at the very back, which was like all these small code changes that we can do, even if the riverfront redevelopment big pie in the sky dream doesn't go forward now, which actually didn't seem like a big pie in the sky dream. It kind of felt like the best next step. But since it didn't happen, I would love to move forward in whatever way we can, tackling whatever small piece of the pie that we can to just think about how we want that to feel and be safe for people to walk to the park and kids to bike across and older people to go from their houses or apartments or I think it's just like, what's the next iteration of our city, and how do we have a downtown that has good stuff in it. And it's all good stuff, it's just we don't have that much space. So we have to say, well, how do we have more of what we want? And it's a free country, so we don't want to limit the beautiful all of the different businesses and things that we have. It's just if we have all of one thing, we can't have some of the other things that we don't have yet. So the end. But I don't know if that's something that we can start thinking about in a work session, but that also brings me to the idea of training. In November, there's that, what's it called? Planning conference in city. wow. But there's a great training opportunity where you can rub shoulders with other planning commissioners from other cities. Yeah, in Anchorage, and often members of this body will go and learn about Robert's rules and about just all sorts of things that other cities in Alaska are doing. What is that called?
Is
APA?
it through AML or APA?
Yeah, one of them.
Okay.
Are they? I think they're often like right next to each other.
Yeah,
remember.
APA unfortunately hasn't been, they're kind of doing a restructuring with their leadership with the Alaska chapter, so they haven't had any training, unfortunately. I'm trying to keep tabs when they create it. I know they're trying to work on something. Once that pops up, yes, I'm happy to sign you up. And then when it comes to AML training stuff, I think typically they're more catered to council member level, but if they do, I'll keep tabs on their agendas if there is anything. And of course, if you're very interested in it, happy to, I think typically we have enough to cover at least up to 2 commissioners, and that's in the next budget. So yeah, I will send you when those agendas are published. Happy to send it over and see the interest level of your commission.
Commissioner Burton here. I think a couple years ago, several of the commissioners attended an APA-related function. And as a first-time commissioner back then, it was very valuable. And that's something I totally recommend when the opportunity, if the opportunity presents itself. Okay. So we are going to go to Commissioner Ruffridge.
Thank you. I actually did have a question. I guess that's probably appropriate. When you, to the director, when you were sharing that we could have an amendment as a commission, just in regarding you to just be able to change addresses appropriately, is that something that we could do tonight and have that go forward, or is that? I mean, I guess I'm speaking to the whole commission, but or am I understanding that wrong? But as far as do we need to just for the next meeting create an amendment for you to be able to go ahead with those changes without bringing them to us each time, or is that something that's just moving forward from here on out?
Thank you, Commissioner Ruffridge. Since I didn't get any nods of head saying no to it, I will bring forth a resolution to a code amendment for your commission to recommend to council to enact to change that at the
For next meeting. Okay. Great. Thank you. I just didn't want to miss that opportunity. And yeah, I just want to say thank you. It's great to be a new part of this conversation and body. And I thank you to all the, I know it's been kind of, yeah, everything's reconfigured and we're all sitting in different seats. So appreciate all the effort and the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ruffridge. All right, we're going to proceed to adjournment here. The next regular meeting will be held on Wednesday, May 6th, 2026 at 5:30 p.m. Seeing no other items on the agenda, the meeting is adjourned.